All right. Welcome to The Blueprint, where we talk about building online communities, entrepreneurship, and faith. And today I have a special guest, Miss Kimberly Dixon Dudley, with Kimberly Lane Properties.
Hi, how are you, Michael?
Good. It's super excited to have you on today. So you got some awesome stuff going. You got some properties you're building. You got some communities you're building with agents. So I'm excited to get started in that. So, before we kind of jump into it, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll, have a great conversation.
Sure. So, my name again is Kim Dixon Dudley. I am a real estate broker and CEO for Kimberly Lane Properties. Mm-hmm. I've had the pleasure of working in this beautiful city, Houston, Texas for 17 years in the real estate space. And so really proud of the product that we put on the ground and a lot of things we've done in the community, but I'm super excited about the new projects that are coming up. So I can't wait to share that.
Yeah. So what you got coming up? Give us kind of a highlight. What are you working on?
Well, we've got a few development projects that are coming up, but I've got a program or platform that we're going to launch here in the next month or so called a Build Ambassador.
Okay.
And essentially it's what it sounds like. It's a real estate or licensed professional. We're offering an opportunity to become an ambassador to build and sell new construction. Yeah. We want to really get them involved in the full journey of the process, from land acquisition to architectural engineering design to the construction portion, and eventually, of course, the sale.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. I think we were talking offline. I think you're a hybrid real estate broker because you sell properties, but you're also building properties, right? Yeah, and so is this program kind of built out of kind of that, like where you've been able to kind of navigate both?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really built out of the need. Like I hear other agents have come to me and said, hey, can I shadow you? Or can you, tell me how this process works? And so rather than us just randomly sharing information in this big, bold market that we have, I thought, why don't we put a collective effort together and really give people information that they can use and either build and develop themselves or work with and partner with investors and developers to sell their products.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something I'm really passionate about is building online communities and teaching education through those, being able to take the mistakes that we've made or the lessons we've learned and being able to then just go and share that, right? And so whether that's a business model or that's just, hey, I have a passion for educating. Yeah. I think that's such a powerful space. And I think education is changing. How we view education is changing. I think there's college is less and less accessible for people and less practical.
And so unpractical for a lot of people and not necessary. I have plumbers who work on our projects who are making $200,000 a year. That's a trade. Yeah. You get out of high school, get educated, get under an apprenticeship, and there's a career path there. So it's not necessary, which is why I think I leaned into the development side too. A lot of folks will get their real estate license and they think, oh, I'm just going to sell property, but there's so many things you can do in the space of real estate. So I get excited about talking about those things because I see them firsthand. But you're right. There's just a bunch of avenues that we can lean into. I'm excited to do that.
So why is it important for an agent to even follow in kind of the footsteps that you've kind of paved in terms of building your own products, selling products, helping other clients? Kind of why is that important for an agent to learn how to be a developer, a builder, or like how to work with a developer builder?
Well, let me answer that in twofold. Your last part of your question was very important. Okay. First, I don't think everybody should be a developer or builder. Okay. It's not a space for people. You have to understand your risk and your risk tolerance and then your ability, right? Where are you strongest? So, it seems sexy, but there's a lot of moving parts. So I think people should evaluate the big picture, which is why the program is important. You get an opportunity to see the inner workings of what's going on without having to risk your own 401k or whatever, right? Yeah. So one, I think people need to really think about the long game, whether it's for them or not. And then, if you're going to sell new construction, I started in new construction. So in 2006, I started with a mass production builder. And that builder's blueprint to your name was you have to know how to build in order to sell. So we had to be on site for construction meetings. We had to know how to put form boards in, when the framing's supposed to start. You have to know those things. So you can have that conversation with the consumer. Right. So the second part of the answer is that if you're going to sell new construction, you are so much more of a valuable resource if you know the process of new construction.
Okay.
Not only to the builder investor, but to your client.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So that is really interesting. So talk about some of the projects that you have coming up that people who are going to be in your ecosystem are going to get to be exposed to, learn from. So kind of what are some of those projects and.
So I have a client who's a community development corporation.
Okay.
And I've gotten the opportunity to learn their mission. They have some product that's mission driven, and then they have some revenue driven products. So the mission driven product is going to be priced in the 300 to maybe high 200s.
Okay.
So it's still affordable, Mike. You know, you and I know that the market with interest rates and everything else, that's an affordable price point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But then they'll have some stuff down in East downtown, where we're 550s, which is more of a luxury product.
Okay.
So it's a couple of different things that are going on, and excited to share the experience on both the affordable side and market side for some of the agents who are coming in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like in terms of when you're representing a client like that? What are some of the things that you're helping them do when they're building out their projects?
Very good question.
Yeah.
And so, if you're thinking of working with an investor or a developer or a community development corporation, you got to know what their end goal is. You know, you want to sell their product, right? But what's their end goal? And then you have to know what their processes are. So it's important to really kind of get into the business and know, like, for instance, I know that what the mission driven product is going to be. I've been involved on the architectural design. We've been involved with creating the marketing pitches. So those are some of the things and some of the journeys that the agents who are on the Build Ambassador program will get a chance to be a part of. And they'll see those processes at each stage.
Gotcha. Okay. So I see a picture forming here. So you can tell me if the way I'm seeing it is right.
Okay.
So I see this opportunity to get exposed to the builder, you know, how the building process works, right? Learning from yourself, you know, someone who's had a lot of experience working with builders and developers. But I think the bigger picture that I'm seeing is really understanding what your client needs, right? And so if you're a real estate agent watching this and you're like, hey, I want to work with developers or whatever, I think really helping people learn, okay, how do you think about how to serve a client?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, Tim, I have bought and sold a couple real estate properties so far in my life.
Okay.
And I have not been blown away by all the agents I have worked with. Wow. Right. And I think part of that is, I think a lot of agents are so focused on selling the product that they forget about the emotional need behind why is somebody wanting to buy property, right? Like what is the mission?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that is something that's an intangible thing that can really elevate the experience someone has when they're working with you. Right. And so being able to understand that, and so from a very practical standpoint, if you're building a house, how you build the house is going to determine what the end consumer then feels about the product that they're buying.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so I just think that's really important. That's sometimes not as easy to explain to people, right? You can't necessarily put that in 3 steps. You know what I mean?
There's some detours along the way.
Yeah, but you have to learn to kind of start thinking past, okay, just selling products, making money.
Yeah.
Start thinking about, okay, what's the emotion that we are tapping into?
Yeah.
I think that emotion is so important because real estate is very emotional. People talk about real estate's all about the numbers. I call BS. Right? There's always some emotion behind it. Especially if you're talking about money. Money is emotional. So there's no way you can start talking about money and make it strictly just the numbers, right? Like, so there's always going to be an emotional component attached to that. And so how we navigate that, I think, is really important. So what do you think about that? Like, as a big picture.
Yeah. So drilling down on what you said, I think that anyone who's in a position to sell new construction and you work with an investor and the end buyer, you're in a unique position because you have to look at both sides. You have to, the investor is strictly numbers motivated. I mean, there's no love at all. I'm very honest about that part. I mean, I think that there are people who want to do good in the community, but ultimately the bottom line matters.
Right.
So you have to be mindful of that, right? But if you're working with a client or a community of buyers, which is what we plan on doing, right? You got to know what their needs are. Are they concerned about dog spaces? I mean, I've had those things come up. Are they concerned about the schools? It's making the emotional connection, but it is also always, and I tell every buyer this, it is also an investment. Every home you purchase, if you love it, I think that's great, but it is an investment. It is a resource and a tool, and you have to kind of have that narrative along with the emotional component for the end user as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So we have a couple minutes left. Let's talk about the community aspect and kind of educational piece of that.
Yeah.
My business model is I help people like create products, courses, coaching products. I help them take the knowledge that's in their head, package it, and sell that. Right. And so I'm always thinking about, well, how do we do that? How do we do that in ways that feel, they don't feel salesy, like you're just trying to like get a quick buck off some information, right? How do we make this feel like holistic, like we're genuinely making an impact, right? And I think building it through community is so impactful because we're all working together. We're communal beings.
Right.
We want to work together. You know, the social proof of kind of saying, oh, other people are doing this. It's safe, right? So how do we build that kind of community? And so as we think about this program you're working on, just even your business model, how important is it that groups of agents go through this, that this is something that's not just like a one or two people, but kind of a group of people? Like what's the value of that you think?
So night before last, I had the opportunity to be at the retirement party for the Astros general manager.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not a huge baseball person, so I don't know.
General manager for the Houston Astros, and our mayor just recently retired as well. They kind of co-hosted their own retirement at an event downtown. And one of the things that they said, and I made this note, and I think we've heard these things before, but is if you want to go somewhere quick, go alone. If you want to go somewhere far, go together. So if we're thinking about how we can build a community of educated real estate professionals, it doesn't benefit me to keep this information close to my chest. You know, if I'm a leader in this space, I'm going to eat on the fruits of my labor and the information the fruit that bears, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the communal part is important because we've been left out of certain conversations on a vast majority of topics, but especially in the real estate space. So for me, I know that someone or someone's fed this information to me. I had mentors and leaders in my life who were always available and accessible and helped me scale my business in a way that I could never have done. So that's why the community aspect is so important to me, because bringing people into a space where I know I was able to grow and become whole it's almost satisfying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's kind of the gist of it.
Okay.
But I think it's powerful and more impactful if we go as a community rather than me trying to do this all by myself.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the educational piece of that. I think we're in a Black renaissance when it comes to real estate education. If you are teaching people how to develop, fix and flip, I think as a Black community, we have all been like, yo, we can make money this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I would say for myself, I kind of came onto that through reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh,
right? Yeah. And I was like, 2018, 2017. And so I might just be late to the party, right? It could have been something a
long time ago. I remember 2010 is the first time I read that book.
Yeah. And so, but like in terms of us collectively as a people, the Black community saying, okay, this is something that we all can do, right? So there's a lot of people talking about a lot of educators out there in the Black community. Yeah. So where do you think what's important as someone's picking, like, hey, who am I going to learn from? Who am I going to invest in? What community am I going to join? What are some important things that you think, to evaluate as they decide who's going to be their educator as we look at this new education model that's kind of unfolding that you're now kind of partaking in as well? Like what's important in that aspect?
That's a good question. I think something that's really just popped up into my mind is just success has a track record. If someone's successful, you can look at the track record and see where they've been successful. And I also tell people this: everybody's not a mentor for you. So look at what someone has done and spaces where they've been able to create success. And if that's something you want to model yourself after, then you kind of then know which way to go and what direction to go into. And also, real estate is transactional. Yes, there's a lot of money to be made, but I'm always mindful of the fact that we are changing the landscape of our communities. You know, with our efforts, every home, every development changes how people will see their community 50 years from now. So be mindful of the contribution that you're making. Yes, make a dollar. Yes, contribute, but be very mindful of the impact and imprint that you're making.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So what I kind of heard you saying is, as you are picking the community you're going to invest in, the educators you're going to learn from, there's like social proof, you know, like seeing, hey, what kind of track record do they have? Right. Of success. Right. But then there's also like finding the person who kind of believes the same things you believe, right? So there's kind of some like values-based things in there, right? Yeah, which I think is so freeing, because when you look at it, there are a lot of people who could teach you how to build a house or how to rehab, right? But like finding that personality that you like is sometimes like that's the differentiator. It doesn't necessarily, you know, you could learn it a million different ways, right? But like finding that person that you want to learn from, that speaks the same language you speak, that cares about the community in the way you care about it. So I think that's why I think it's what you're doing is so important, because you are very vocal about what your values, right? So I think somebody's going to learn the X's and O's, but they're also going to get like really, they're going to get values built into them. So I think that's just, I don't think we can underestimate how impactful that is, as we kind of grow together as a community. So yeah.
It's a standard. I think you set the standard with your belief system, because everything you believe, you becomes a manifestation in your actions. So if you're just money motivated in a transaction, money will motivate and drive it. But if there's some layers, you'll see a different result. Yeah.
So good. Well, thank you for joining me. This was so fun. We should do this again. I can't wait to touch bases with you again a couple months after some of these projects are rolling. You got your community, and we can bring in some of your people and get their experience as well. So I appreciate you.
That'd be great. I'm looking forward to it.